Hello, everyone. So we have a special live session today on October 3rd, 2025. So this is for all international students and Canadian aspirants. I mean, those students who want to come here to Canada for studies or those who are preparing themselves for PR applications. So today's section is focused on CELPIP preparation. So we had a couple of sessions, I think 2 months ago. So thanks for your cooperation here. Everybody joined last time. It was almost 800 people there. Today we have some distinguished guests here. Patrick Maccarone from CELPIP board itself. Hi, Patrick.
Hey, Bijou,
And
how are you?
yeah, I'm good. Thank you. Thanks for joining. And we have
Pleasure.
Rod Chalmers, Polar Bear English, and he's a amazing teacher, right? And he has been training a lot of students in CELPIP. You know, you don't find much materials preparing CELPIP reading, listening, and he is great at teaching and training students. So today's focus is mainly on CELPIP reading. So let's invite Patrick for a short introduction about what is CELPIP, and those who are new here, you can get to know about the modules and tests, everything. Welcome, Patrick. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks for having me, Bijou. It's always great to join these streams. And hello to everybody. I hope you're having a good day or night, wherever you're tuning in from. Just going to bring up my slides here and we'll get into it.
Thank you. I think I can add it here.
If you can add it, yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. So yeah, today we're going to be talking about CELPIP, which is one of the accepted English tests if you're applying for Canadian immigration or citizenship. So if you're applying to become a permanent resident in Canada, there is a host of English tests that you can take to prove to the government that you have a certain proficiency in English. And CELPIP is one of those accepted tests. It is a Canadian test. And as you can see here on the slide, we do have, it's actually over 200 test centers worldwide right now. So, and we're always opening new test centers pretty much every month in new countries. So you can go to the CELPIP website to stay up to date with all of the countries that we're open in. So CELPIP, we're going to be talking today about the CELPIP test for immigration purposes. And if you're taking CELPIP for immigration to Canada, you're going to have to prove your proficiency in the 4 language skills: listening, reading, writing, and speaking. Today, we're going to primarily talk about reading. But just so you're familiar, if you're taking CELPIP for immigration, you want to take the CELPIP general test at the top that you can see there. In Canada, if you take it in Canada, the test costs $290 Canadian plus tax. But if you take it internationally at one of our international centers, the price will vary a little bit depending on which country you take it in. But that is the test you are going to want to take, a 4 skills test for your immigration process to Canada. The CELPIP test is designed where you're given basically about 3 hours to complete the full test. But if you're fast, if you're a little bit quicker than others and you finish the test in, let's say, 2 hours, then it's only a 2-hour test for you. So it doesn't have to be a 3-hour test. As soon as you're done, you're free to get up and leave the center and wait for your results. In addition to Canada, CELPIP is now approved if you're looking to move to Australia. So it's accepted for Australian visa processes. So you can visit our Australian version of our website, which is celpip.au, to get more information and to book a test date. So Rod is going to be diving more into detail about the reading session today, but basically it is the second section you will encounter. So first you take listening and then you take reading after. It is multiple choice format. One helpful thing about reading is that you're going to get the reading passages and the questions at the same time. So you don't have to remember what you read. You're going to have access to both sources simultaneously. So There are 4 different parts. There is a practice task at the beginning. Given that CELPIP is only computer delivered, so you have to go to a physical center and take it on a computer. So given that it's computer delivered, it's going to have a timer that's always letting you know how much time you have to complete each given section of the test. So you won't have to ask any staff member. The time that you have is going to be right in front of you on the computer screen. So the total reading section is about 55 to 60 minutes. It's just under 40 multiple choice questions in total. And the reading passages and the questions get gradually harder as you go through the reading section. So just to keep that in mind. And Rod is going to deep dive into this section in a few minutes. Keep in mind, we have 2 free practice tests on the website. So the practice test will actually give you scoring for your performance in listening and reading. So when you take the practice test at home, you're going to be able to check your approximate CELPIP level for both listening and reading. So it is helpful to see where you're at. And you can go to celpip.ca/sample in order to take the 2 free practice tests, which are on the CELPIP website. Last but not least, to get in touch with the CELPIP team, if you have any test inquiries or anything we can help you with, you can visit our website. We also have our email and our toll-free number there. So don't be shy, reach out to us. And definitely follow us on social media, because that's how we keep test takers up to date with new things that are happening with CELPIP, like new locations that we've opened up, study product sales when we have study products 50% off, and other really helpful updates. So definitely Instagram, I would recommend you follow us. It's our handle on Instagram is CELPIP Test Official. And we go live regularly. So it's a great interactive way to interact with CELPIP and Prometric. Awesome. So now I'm going to turn it over to Rod, and he has his own company called Polar Bear English. So Rod is an officially licensed CELPIP preparation provider and instructor. So he's gone through the official CELPIP training. He's also been a teacher for X number of years. Time flies, so we're both getting old. But you're in good hands with him, and he's going to talk more in depth today about the reading component. So, without further ado, take it away, Rod.
Thank you, Patrick, for your presentation. It was so informational. Like, we got a lot of ideas about it. And over to you, Rod. I would like to hear your English teaching story, because most of our students are, it's a second language for them, most of the students here. So what are your advices, when you learn English as a second language, right?
Well, let me first ask you if you can see my screen here.
Yeah, sure.
Yes. Okay.
I don't see your screen here. Let me
Sure.
Let me just see this one. So can you add it on?
Sure. Let me take a look here and see what we can do.
Yeah.
Here we go.
Yeah, I can see it right now.
Yeah, it's coming on now.
Good.
Awesome.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you very much for that lovely intro from both of you. Nice way to wake up in the morning, getting good news. I have been around English teaching my whole life. So my mom came from England when she was 14 to Canada, and started teaching at George Brown College and Seneca College as an English teacher. And as children, we were raised with these grammatical rules. So from the time we were babies, really, I mean, our babbling was probably grammatically incorrect, but once we could form words, it was very like, it has to be perfect. And as a result, we have developed into a bit of a communications family. So I now teach English. I was teaching first response and paramedic healthcare for a number of years for the Canadian Red Cross Society. My eldest brother is a radio announcer here in Toronto, for those of you who like jazz. He does a jazz show every afternoon. And my other brother is a wine educator in the Okanagan Valley in British Columbia. And he teaches about everything from A to Z or A to Z about growing and harvesting and making wine and all the little details that I don't know about. I just like to drink it. I knew from a very young age that my communication skills were strong, not only from teachers, but because other students gave me their work to edit or proofread before it was submitted. And I will always encourage you to do that. Make sure that you are editing your work. Now, we won't talk today much about writing. Today, we're going to focus on reading. But when it comes time to writing, and going back to what Patrick mentioned earlier about if you finish early, it's okay. I would recommend that's okay for all of the sections except writing. Make sure with writing that you're using every last 30 seconds you've got to read and reread and see if there's any adjustments you want to make, maybe vocabulary changes, maybe the order of your sentences you can cut and paste because you're on a computer. So lots of options for you. With regard to my daily activity now, well, I graduated from McMaster University in psychology, and I use psychological techniques when I'm teaching to help students acquire, so get the information, and retain it, keep it, and find it later, because we need to be able to recall the information. So I use those techniques and repetition, and we talk a bit about how to train our neurons to make things happen more automatically. So that's really cool. So there's lots of learning tricks that can be used that aren't difficult, but if you know them and use them, your brain will respond to them very effectively because these studies have already been done. It's not new information. As Patrick mentioned, I went through the CELPIP instructor training course quite some time ago. And in 2015, I did my Cambridge English teaching for adults specifically. I've only ever taught adults. I taught kids for like a day or two, and I decided that that was probably not a good idea for me. I managed. Nobody got hurt, but but it was a challenge. So I've only ever taught adults, and as a result, my courses are not very academic. My courses are very practical. They're very use it, try it, see how it feels, what works, what doesn't work. It's more of a lab or a workshop than it is an academic course where you just sit and listen. Sitting and listening is okay, but it doesn't compare at all to providing the information and giving the output so that you can actually practice it. So we say, if you want to learn about cooking, you don't read about cooking, you get in the kitchen and you actually do it. So that's what we do. And of course, that's how I focus on a lot of my Sheridan courses as well, as I make sure that my students are showing me output. So reading is input, listening is input, but speaking is output, and writing is output. So we want to practice as much output as possible. And when we're talking about reading, we have to read and then discuss what it is that we read. So did we actually get it? Did we actually understand it? I don't want you to worry too much about just facts. The CELPIP test is not just memorize facts for the answers. It's understand the meaning of the text and what are they saying without saying it. So for example, if you're reading a story and the story has to do with a husband and wife who are catching a plane to Paris in the morning to go on vacation, the plane leaves at 6 o'clock in the morning out of Toronto, and they have to be at the airport at 4 in the morning. And then the question talks something about they've been invited to an anniversary party with one of their friends who they've known for a long time on that night before they're supposed to leave. And you have to think, without the text telling you, wait a second, that doesn't make sense. If they have to be at the airport at 4 o'clock in the morning and they're being invited to a party the night before, that probably would not be a good idea because they're going to risk sleeping in or missing their flight. So we're thinking not just about the facts that are delivered to us, but we're thinking about what does it mean and how would it influence or affect the lives of the people that are in the reading. I did have to do CELPIP myself. I thought if I'm going to be a trainer, I had better show my students that I can do it. I don't know if any of you saw the second Top Gun movie. Maverick came out a couple of years ago, and he had to teach his very well-trained pilots already how to do a very particular maneuver. And it seemed impossible until he actually went and showed them, this is how you do it. And they were all amazed. And that just, it broke the ceiling open, and people could then achieve what it is that they wanted to achieve. So I'm showing you here that 12s are possible, but I'll also tell you that I studied. So even though my mom was an English teacher, I studied. And then people say, well, why did you study? I mean, you're an English teacher. What? And I said, I wasn't studying the language. I was studying the test. What do they want? What do they want to hear? What style do they want? Do they want me to be casual? Do they want me to be formal? Do they want me to be academic? Am I allowed to say and ah? Do I have to speak quickly? What happens if I have more to say and there's time left over? Or what happens if I'm reading a passage and I don't understand one of the words? So we're looking for techniques and tricks and ways to calm ourselves so that we can perform as best possible. And I would suggest to anybody taking this test, and perhaps others, to treat it like an athletic event. If you're going to train for or if you want to run a 10K race, 10-kilometer race, you don't just show up on the day of the race, your first time running ever, with your brand new sneakers and go and run it, because it'll kill you. It's a long way for somebody who's not in shape. So you do have to train for it. If you want to take it even a step further, you would do practice tests or record yourself and listen back. And that's really hard because people don't like the sound of their voice, and people find it difficult to evaluate themselves or see that they didn't do so well. Professional athletes will video record themselves playing whatever sport it is. And then they will watch that video with their coach. And together they will analyze the performance, and they will decide where improvements have to be made. And these are professional athletes. That's how you stay at the top of your game. So I encourage you to do the same. Treat this as an athletic event. Practice and practice and practice and practice and practice. I practiced until I felt sick. And then I would have a sleep and have some food, and then I'd come back and I'd do it again. So you're going to do this until the questions are boring. And when the questions become boring, that's when you know you're ready to take the test. Because then you'll sit down at the test and you'll be like, I've done this before a bunch of times. This is easy. But if you go in ill-prepared, unprepared, not prepared, you will definitely have difficulties. There is no pass or fail. It is a Canadian language benchmark, scale of 1 to 12. Depending on your goal, some people maybe need to hit number 4, some people number 5, some people number 7, some people number 9. So it all depends on what your personal goals are or purposes are for taking the test. So it's not, one cannot fail the test, but you might not achieve the number that you were looking for. You might not achieve your goal or your challenge. So that's the idea of doing practice tests and making sure that you're ready. Structure and timing. This applies to all of the test. Of course, we'll focus on reading today. Know how many questions there are per section. Know roughly how long each section is. Know what they want to hear from you. And a rubric is just a fancy word for a score chart. It's the checklist that the examiners will use to see if you are meeting the things that they want. Well, if you don't know what's on their checklist, how can you give them what they want? So the whole idea is learn the examiner's checklist. It's not a secret. It's on the CELPIP website. You can go and see the sort of things that they are going to look for. And then as you are practicing your answers, you're going to cross-reference and make sure that you are meeting those expectations. And that will make an incredible difference to your score, just knowing what to expect. There are available study aids. Some are free through the CELPIP website. Some are paid. And Patrick often has specials and so on for people who want to access the paid materials with maybe a little coupon or something. So we'll see what he has available. In terms of psychological readiness, Patrick and I always agree, and we used to say it only at the end, and now I say it now at the beginning. Sleep before your test. If you think that you can pull an all-nighter and memorize facts the way you would do for a history test or math equations, it's not going to work. It's a very slow process. Do a little bit every day, every day, every day, every day, every day, and just let it slowly build up, build up, build up, and it's much, much easier. Make sure that you are well rested. Make sure that you have eaten something if you can. I personally don't eat in the morning. I had my test at 9. I just had a coffee and I was good, but that is up to you. Make sure that you're hydrated. You've got some food. You're not lightheaded. You've had a good sleep. You're rested. You're feeling good. You're up an hour maybe before the test, or probably 2 hours before, because you have to get to the test center early, sign in, show your ID, get your picture taken. That nice picture, by the way, on my test, that was not the picture that they took. Yeah, it looked more like a passport picture, so I changed that. But other than that, and I added the polar bears so that nobody could steal my test results. Speaking of stealing test results, please do not think that you can buy test results. I see ads on Facebook all the time where you don't have to sit for the exam, because we know people on the inside. I know people on the inside too. See, I know Patrick, and I know examiners personally. We go out and we watch hockey games together. But can I ask them to influence? They don't even know whose test they're gonna get. Thousands of these things are done, thousands. And randomly, the examiners receive MP3 files and they listen, or multiple choice, and they'll review, I guess, if you're concerned about one of the answers. You've asked for a reconsideration or a review, but they are humans that are doing this. So be prepared, be clear, and don't think that you can bypass the system. Government agencies have computers that are logged into CELPIP directly. So all they have to do is look at your name, your address, your passport number, and your test number. They'll realize that these things don't match, and now you will not be allowed to do whatever it is that you are applying to do. So just be straight up and study for it, and your future will be much brighter. In terms of the reading, all of the I shouldn't say all, some of the sections have a practice activity to give you an idea of what to expect. You will already know what to expect because you will have rehearsed this like an actor or an athlete a number of times. We will look at these different options here today and expand on some of these. I think one of the difficult ones is applying information from a diagram, but I have a demonstration for you here just a little bit later. So take a screenshot. I mean, I suspect that this slide will be available, and I think that this webinar will be living online for a long time. But I would do a screenshot of this, maybe even screenshot it and print it and stick it beside your computer where you're studying. These are the things that you want to remember while you are practicing. Once you have practiced a number of times with these techniques, you won't have to remember them anymore because you'll just know them. They'll just become automatic. Main ideas. Sometimes we don't have to read an entire text in order to get the main idea. Not a detailed idea, just the main, what's the big story? The problem, of course, these days is that many people just read the headline, and the headline is obviously or often twisted in order to get your attention. And then you have to actually read the news story to get the truth. But a lot of people just read the headline. They think they know the story. So in order to identify the main idea, at the very least, you've got to skim over the words to get the general gist. Another great word, the gist. What is the gist? What is the main point that this is trying to make? I mentioned earlier an overall understanding. If a family is going on a flight in the morning and the story includes something about a party the night before, you have to put that understanding together in the context to say, hey, wait, these two things don't match very well. What would I do if I were in that situation? Or what would my mom tell me to do if I were in that situation? And we can put ourselves in the shoes of the people who are in the story. Each paragraph will contain its own separate information. when I am speaking to my college students about writing an essay, I say, suppose I were to write an essay about camping. I would probably want to talk about what to bring to eat, what to wear, things for entertainment. We're going to need a radio. We're going to need some board games. Maybe we should take a canoe. We should take something to cook with. If we're going to take something to cook with, we should probably have a cooler. If we have a cooler, we should probably have ice. If we have ice, we should probably have some drinks and some meat. Now, it's going to be sunny, which means we're going to need also hats and sunglasses. We're going to need sunscreen. And we go through, and then after we've made a list of all of the things that we want to talk about, we categorize them. So I say, when I was in university, I used colors. I used highlighters. So all of the things that had to do with food, for example, I would make that one color of the highlighter maybe blue. All of the things that had to do with clothing, I would make those perhaps yellow. All of the things that had to do with entertainment while we were there or athletics, I would make those maybe orange. Now I have all this blue and yellow and orange all over my page, but all I have to do is put all of the blue things in one paragraph, all of the yellow things in a second paragraph, and all of the orange things in a third paragraph. And now I have chunked the information. I have organized it into categories. So I want you to think about that as you are either writing or reading. So if a question asks about an animal's eating habits, you will find that in a particular paragraph. It won't be split between two paragraphs. And if later there's another question about their habitat or their eating, you'll find it in the same paragraph. So just because it's a different question and it's in a different spot doesn't mean it's not going to be in that category or in that paragraph. So we have, in my case, a food paragraph, a clothing paragraph, and an activities paragraph. If you're reading about penguins, for example, in Antarctica, it might talk about how they hunt. Then there might be another section about what they look like. Then there might be another section about how do they talk to each other? How do they communicate? And then there might be a section about the environment and whether or not they're an endangered species. So all of the information about endangered species will be in one. All of the information about food will be in another. All of the information about mating will be in another. All of the information of what they look like. So it's very clearly outlined. And when you start to recognize that in writing, it becomes much faster to find information. Usually in CELPIP, early questions relate to early parts of the reading. Middle questions relate to the middle part, and end questions relate to the end part. So that might also save you some time. If you're reading the very first question, your answer is probably not going to be in the last paragraph. Right? The job is not to trick you or steal your time. They just want to challenge you. But that's not really a fair challenge. You're wasting time just looking. We want you to spend time understanding. So early question, early part of the passage. Recognizing the writer's tone and intentions. Are they angry? Are they upset? Are they scared? Are they hopeful? Are they excited? Are they curious? And what are the intentions? Are they trying to convince me of something? What are they trying to sell me? Not necessarily a physical product, but what is it that they're trying to convince me of? What are their intentions? Why did they take the time to write this article or to create this flyer? What message are they trying to send? Facts and opinions. Really important to recognize, and you might even want to have ChatGPT help you as a coach, or Gemini or Claude or one of the other AI platforms. And you might want to write something like, if I'm reading an article or if I'm reading a paragraph, what words would indicate facts versus opinions? And you will see things like, for a fact, studies have shown, or 23% of people, or it has been measured that blah, 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 or the response rate is 7 out of 10. These are all numbers, right? These are all, you can't argue with a number. You can't argue with a percentage. You can't argue with well, I was going to say you can't argue with statistics. You can, but that's later.
Or like a date too, right? Like a date is like a fact. Like a
exactly. Yeah.
year.
Yeah. A
Yeah.
date is a fact. A year is a
Yeah.
fact. A location is a fact. Right.
Yeah.
But if we hear something like, I have seen, or in my experience, or I think, or what might happen, or what could happen, those are all opinions. So might, could, maybe, what I've seen, what I've heard, my friend said, those are all opinions. So make sure that you're separating facts from opinions, because the question might ask you about a fact, but really it was just the person's opinion. And you have to make sure that's just what you thought. That's not what you actually know to be true. So the examiners are checking to see whether or not you can separate a fact from an opinion. Applying logic and finding connections. This has to do with the example that I'll show you shortly about a flyer from a gardening center. And the gardening center is promoting different plants to put in your vegetable garden. But some of the plants need sun, and some of the plants need water, and some of the plants want shade, and some of the plants you can pick early, and some of the plants you can pick late, and some of the plants need space, and some of the plants don't need space. And there's all this different stuff. And our job is to apply the logic and look for those connections. Okay, if it's my first time gardening, because you'll have a little story, right? It's your first time gardening. What would you recommend for, a sunny yard or something like that? So you have to now think, okay, if one of the plants says that it's a difficult thing to grow, and I have just been told that I'm a first-time gardener, those two things don't go together, do they? First-timers should not do difficult things. First-timers should do easy things. So we have to put those pieces together. I'm a first-time gardener, or it's fall, and we don't have very much time to grow. We had better grow things that grow quickly, because if we choose tomatoes, which need all summer, obviously we're not thinking. If the test is telling you it's that's a little late. If the test is telling you it's August, it's too late to plant tomatoes. So and the flyer will tell you, and we'll get to that in a sec. So you're finding things that make sense and don't make sense. Again, you're not reading just academically. You're reading to understand and put yourself into the shoes of the characters. The final and probably most important advice for anybody who wants to become a better reader is to read more. And a lot of people hate reading. I hated reading. When I was in school, didn't read very many of the books they wanted me to read. When I got older, I started reading things that were fun. Then my reading got amazing, because I was reading about scuba diving and sailing and travel and cooking and things that were of interest to me. Some people like wine, some people like exercise, some people like puppies and kittens, some people like quilting, some people like gardening. There's a magazine for everything. So find something that is of interest to you. Otherwise, you won't read, because reading boring stuff is awful. The other option is to find your local news station online. So in Toronto, I would suggest cp24.com. CP stands for City Pulse. Back when I was a kid, it was called City Pulse News. Now it's CP, and it's 24 hours a day, so CP24. And on that website, you will find short one-page articles about news stories that are happening around Toronto or around the province. I would often start my college classes with one of these articles. And there were always about 15 words, 15 vocabulary words that were brand new. And that's fine. Please don't ever get upset at yourself if you're reading and you don't recognize a word or know the meaning, because that happens to all of us. It's not uncommon for me to read perhaps a financial or a political piece in our leading newspaper, the Globe and Mail. The Globe and Mail writes at an extremely high level, and I'll be reading the Globe and Mail and be like, I don't know this word, and I'll have to go and look it up myself. So even as native speakers of the language, there are words that are low frequency words. We don't use them very often, and this is how you build your vocabulary, is by reading, because you're recognizing somebody else's vocabulary and somebody else's sentence structure and somebody else's grammar. And if you like the way somebody writes, steal their style and make it your own as you copy that technique of whatever it is that you liked about their style of writing. Copy it and it will become who you are as well. My music teacher in university said, good composers borrow, great composers steal. So don't be afraid to copy the authors that you like and use their style, and feel free to be influenced by them, right? We hear often that a band is influenced by other people's music, or a writer is influenced by other people's novels. So here's the example of reading a diagram or a flyer. We know that it's a gardening center. We know that there's times, that's a fact, Tuesday from 6 to 7. We know that we don't have to go 6 to 7 because it says drop by, but that's a phrasal verb. This is how we can test somebody's English. Drop by doesn't translate perfectly. We're not dropping anything, are we? We're stopping in, dropping by. So it's an expression. And of course, if a student has a lower level, if a question talks about when can you go to the store, they might only say between 6 and 7 because they didn't understand the phrase drop by. So that's why where everybody's going to end up a little bit differently based on the expressions and idioms that they have been exposed to throughout their English learning. We can see here, now, this is just a portion of the diagram. The diagram has, if I'm not mistaken, 6 or 8 vegetables. There's cucumbers and radishes and various things. So in this case, just to show the point, the difficulty level here is moderate. If the question talks about being a first-time gardener, this would probably be a better option because it's carrots and it's easy. If your yard has shade, if your yard does not have sunlight, this would be a bad idea, the tomatoes, because it says they need plenty of sunlight. But in the carrots, it says partial shade is okay. Okay, that works. But again, we are testing the student's understanding of shade. What is shade? Shade is where there is no sun. It's the dark part. Under a tree, that dark shadow is shade. We stand in there to avoid the sun and get hot. In this case, the plants need to go deep. But in this case, the plants can go shallowly. Shallow, to be shallow, not very deep. In this case, moderate watering, so medium, moderate. In this one, kind of the same. Moist, but do not drench. Drench. So we have to know moist is a little bit wet, but not very wet. And drench is soaking wet, dripping wet. So wet, dripping, dripping wet. This grows well next to carrots, and this can be harvested at any size. And that might also come up in the questions, that if we are going to grow carrots and tomatoes together, can they sit beside each other? Well, this says yes, it grows well next to carrots. So we use the information from the brochure that they give you to answer questions or fill in the blanks of a story using the information from the flyer. So it might be a flyer about a bicycle shop, and they're talking about a sale, and they're talking about different types of bicycles and what's good for kids and what's good for adults, and what if you want to race, and what if you want to go mountain biking, and there's going to be all these different bicycles and different prices and sale dates and so on, and you got to look at all this and take it all in and interpret that information to decide what it is that you would like. I mentioned in that previous experiment, there's words like drench or moist. And if we don't use those words often, we might not know their meaning. It's always a good idea, if you are either reading or writing, to have access to a thesaurus. It sounds like a dinosaur. It's not a dinosaur. It has been around for a long time. A thesaurus is like a dictionary, but instead of giving you the definition of the words, it gives you words that are similar. So if you find yourself saying nice all the time, oh, I went to the zoo, it was nice. And we looked at the animals and they were nice. And the weather was nice. and I went with my friends and they were nice. And then you look back at your writing and you go, this is terrible. I'm using this word nice. What else could I use? Well, you go to the thesaurus, and the thesaurus will tell you nice could also be great, amazing, stupendous, awesome, fabulous. Pick one. And then you can start using different words. And this is how we boost the vocabulary, because there are often many ways to say something. So they could have said soaking wet instead of drench, but that's too easy. They wanted to test your vocabulary. So paraphrasing is very important. Instead of saying in the text that you're reading, it might say something like the emperor penguin is a social animal. But in the question, it might say something about the emperor penguin needing to live in a community. Kind of means the same thing, doesn't it? Don't expect to find the question of the word of the question to show up in the word of the text. That's too easy. That's called lifting or matching. You're just matching the words. You're not really understanding. You're just matching because it is the same word. So social might be communal. Nesting might be how does it build its house, or where does it live? Foraging. What is foraging? Well, suppose we don't know what foraging is, but we're thinking about animals. What do animals do? They eat, they sleep, and they poop. Pretty much the basics of animals, right? So it doesn't talk anything about sleeping, but it does talk about sleeping because that's nesting. And if sleeping and going to the bathroom are covered, then the only thing left is food. So foraging must have something to do with food. And there it says something about hunting. So that also ties into the idea of foraging or food. So if we don't know the word, you can often guess the word from the context of the story that's around it. Instead of saying diving and surfacing, they might say swimming and coming up for air. Instead of saying day or night, they might say diurnal or nocturnal. Instead of saying the species disperses, it might be the species separates into the oceans, or the species loses communication with each other and then meets again later, right? Because from January to March, they disperse, they leave. So paraphrasing and getting good at multiple words for the same thing. There's a really great activity if you want to try this. My mom used to play this game with me. So we would hear something or maybe read something, and she would turn to me and she would say, how else could you say that? If you didn't want to use these words they used, how could you say it? And I suppose I could say da-da-da-da-da and da-da-da. And she's like, that's pretty good. How else could you say it? Okay, well, I could say blah, 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 and blah, 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 blah. That's good. How else could you say it? And it just went on and on. It was crazy. I had to keep thinking of new words because I couldn't use the stuff that I had said before. And that's a neat experiment for you. Just read a paragraph and see how many times you can rewrite that paragraph, not using the same words, but getting still the same meaning. Right? It's a great activity. Really stretches your brain. In this case, we were talking about words that we don't know, and we sometimes have to take them from context. In this case, the article is about aphantasia, but we think, wait a second, I don't know anything about aphantasia, but we have to read to kind of guess. Blind man's eye. Perhaps it has something to do with seeing something. Count sheep, and I couldn't do it. So maybe it has something to do with math or accounting, or vision. We're not sure. I couldn't see. So it does have to do with vision. I couldn't see any sheep jumping over the fences. There was nothing to count. So the problem wasn't that he couldn't count. The problem was that he couldn't see. So aphantasia has to do with people that can't see things in their imagination. So we can pick up information from context, but it sometimes takes 2 or 3 readings, and that is completely fine. I do have an activity for us to do, but before we do the activity, feel free to reach out to my my website. My email is simply my name, rod@rodchalmers.com. We often do one-on-one classes for CELPIP students, but as it gets busier, and as I see the benefit of students working together and having a partner, a dedicated partner who you can rely on prior to your test. Maybe your tests are about the same 6 weeks or 4 weeks away, and you can practice with each other. So rather than it being $300 for one person, make it $100 and I'll find you a partner. We'll have a maximum of 10 people in the class. We'll do it like this. We'll do it as a Zoom style class meeting. And we do a minimum of an hour. I usually go over time. You're welcome to leave after an hour. Patrick knows I have a tendency to go on a little bit. But this is a much more economical way for people to do it. And it also gives you an opportunity to meet people who are in the same situation as you so that you can rely on them for study help. Now, I am going to see, let me stop share here. And let me see, how can I share a document? Can I drop a document into the conversation? Does that work? I can just drag and drop.
I hope so. Yeah.
Well, we're gonna find out.
It was a lot of information.
A lot of I'm trying not to go too quickly. I know we only have an hour.
I was amazed with the way people read. Like nowadays, reading is very less for people. Like everybody reads or watches Instagram, and the span of attention is so
lot shorter.
We don't spend much time. Very short, actually, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. So I have decided to read at least a page a day. So
well, exactly, and just make it something fun.
Pages,
make it something fun. Make it something interesting.
Actually. Yeah, as you said, it is boring initially, but it was a great point that you mentioned here. Whatever interests you, read it. Yeah. Whatever interests you,
like sports news or something like that.
I never know the the abbreviation of the CP. So that's a City Pulse. That's a
City Pulse. CP.
Yeah.
24. Exactly. Yeah. Well, unless you grew up in the 1980s in Toronto, who would know, right? So when I was teaching in Toronto in around 2018, I realized at that time that 53% of the people in Toronto were not from Canada.
Yeah.
53%, more than half. So I was a minority in my own country, and students were always amazed because I had this information about Toronto that nobody else had because I grew up in Toronto. I was born in Toronto. So when the CN Tower was being built, for those of you who know Toronto or have seen pictures of the CN Tower, I remember being a passenger, obviously, as a young child in a car. I was 5 or 6 years old, and I remember seeing the needle being placed on top of the CN Tower.
Oh.
So it was just being finished when I was a kid, and there was nothing around it. Nothing. Train tracks. That's it. It was in the middle of nowhere. And now, of course, there's condos all over the place. So
yeah.
The document that I'm trying to open, unfortunately, is giving me a little bit of a hard time. So, here, and of course, now that I say that, here it is. Let me see if I can share my screen with you. And then I will do my best to send this document to you as well, so that everybody has a copy.
Yeah, we have registrants already there, so we can send to their emails, I hope. Yeah.
Perfect. Let's see here. Present. Share screen. Go.
How is it going, Patrick? Like the Australia also has accepted the CELPIP as an official test. I have heard some news about it.
It's so we're accepted for Australia. So we have so you can take your CELPIP results are now accepted for dual purpose. So applying to Australia and Canada. So if you want to keep your options open and apply to a few countries, then with CELPIP you can do that for Australia and Canada. So, and we will hopefully soon have more good news about other countries that accept CELPIP. So just stay tuned for that.
That's great.
Are you
Yeah.
able to see my screen with the plastic recycling article?
Not yet,
Unfortunately,
no.
not. Would you be able to share the screen like that as we did last time, like that? Just share the screen, the present
Mm-hmm.
mode. Maybe you can
Mm-hmm.
open it. It's as a new window, and would you be able to share that?
I will certainly give that a shot.
Yeah. And by the way, a lot of people are watching, like the YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, and people will be definitely watching later as well, right? So most of the audience here, the parents of international students, a lot of people are here actually. So they are
That's
really
great.
concerned about their kids' education, especially reaching PR. So what are the possibilities, right? With I think it is a great opportunity for students to crack a CELPIP test and get into the postgraduate work permit and also for PR applications. Yeah,
Absolutely. Is this better?
yeah.
Can we see this now on the screen? Still no.
Unfortunately, not.
Not
Let's
Still
yet,
look
good.
at
no.
it. Yeah,
Okay. So here I'm going to demonstrate or just explain what it is that I wanted to share with
yeah,
you.
sure. Yeah,
When we are looking for something like a fact, like a date or a name, don't take time to read the article. There is no time to read an entire article for CELPIP in order to get the answer. If an article said something about who thinks blah, 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 I would not be reading the article. I would be looking only for names. And what do we know about somebody's name? Starts with a capital letter. Now I don't have to read. All I have to do is capital letter right there. Dan Smith. There's the person's name. Or Dr. So-and-so. That's even easier. Just look for doctor. Or at what time or on what date or in what year did something happen? I'm not reading the article. I'm just 1030, 1999, November. All I'm doing is looking for capital letters or I'm looking for numbers, right? What weight? WEIGHT. How heavy is something, something, something? I'm not reading the article. I'm looking for numbers. 1,000, 2,000, 500, 200, something that's going to indicate a value of weight. So the two last things that I will leave you with are the importance of skimming. That means read the whole thing, but quickly. Don't take the details. Just look at the big words. Leave out all the little. Don't look at the little words. Just look at the big words. What are we talking about? Is it the environment? Is it climate change? Is it recycling? Is it food safety? Or how to deal with land in a new park? What are we going to do with this land? How will we develop it? Maybe it's should children have cell phones before they're 10 years of age? It's just going to be an article. And all I'm looking for are the key points, the big words, just to get the general gist of what is it that I'm even looking at here. Then I'm going to look at a question and I'm going to scan for the answer. Then I'm going to look at the next question and I'm going to scan for the answer. If you read the whole text first in the anticipation that you could memorize all of that to answer the questions, terrible strategy. Question first, go find the answer. Next question, go find the answer. Next question, go find the answers. By the time you have finished all of the questions, you might still have never read the article. You might still not have a full, deep understanding of but that's okay. You're not meet the test where the test wants you to be. And if the test wants you to answer a question, just answer the question. Don't go into any further, deeper meaning. You can do that after the test when you've left. If you would like to find that article to engage with it a little bit more, that's fine. But for test purposes, the clock is on. So when you were saying earlier that you would like to read at least a page a day, start a timer and see how fast you can read one page. One page for some people might take 10 minutes. But as they do it and as they pick the CP24, and the reason I suggest this is that the style of writing is always the same. It's always written at the same level of English. So use that as a guide and see how well you can improve your reading speed and your understanding speed. So it really is just about practice. Unfortunately, I know, and I can't say enough how boring reading is for some people, but you just have to find something that's fun to read. As I say, like cooking or sports, FIFA, the World Cup, the animals, pets, fish, birds. I mean, people have a million hobby, race cars, Formula One, so many neat things to read about. So if you were in school and you were reading about some farm equipment in Alberta, I mean, who cares, right? It's boring. Nobody wants to read that. So read what's interesting for you and you'll excel. Absolutely. Thank you very much for everybody for your time. It's been fantastic. And thanks for having us as guests. I'm certainly here for questions or concerns if anybody has any. Or comment.
Yeah, you definitely, you can comment here if you have any questions. That's fine. I have few questions.
Yes.
About the use of accent. I don't care at all, because many people think about, right, I'm basically from India. I have to speak as some other nationals. What's your opinion about speaking in different accents or keeping one's own accent? Is that okay? Did you get the point? Like, how do you speak? Like,
one's own accent is perfectly fine so long as it can be understood.
Yeah.
Sometimes an accent will interfere with somebody's ability to pronounce a word a certain way. And if that's the case, then the audience, the listener, might have a hard time understanding.
Yeah.
But if it's an accent and the words are clear, fine.
Yeah.
If I were to fake a French accent, for example, and I say to you, well, you're going to come into my kitchen and I will make you a beautiful dinner and we will have some wine and I'll make some steak and some frites for you and we'll have a lovely time together. Well, it's a weird accent, but you understand, right? Because the words weren't, but when it comes out sort of mumble, blah, 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 then no. So there's a balance. So does accent matter? No. Does clarity matter? Yes.
Yes.
And what about
please go ahead.
Yeah. Sorry, go ahead, Bijou.
Yeah, what's your opinion, Patrick? What about you?
Yeah, I second what Rod said. Like, you just want to, speak at a normal pace so people can understand what you're saying. And but yeah, like 99% of people that take CELPIP, English is not their first language. So, don't fret about it. Our raters are specially trained to evaluate people that have an accent. So, and be proud of yourself. You know more than one language. So I myself only know one. So you're ahead of me. So just be positive, speak at a good pace, and just focus more on the clarity of your response. You can even like record yourself and then play it back to see how you sound. Maybe you're talking too quick, stuff like that. So yeah.
Interestingly, we have in India, how many languages we have? 630 languages.
Wow.
Okay, and it's in different states and different tribes, different districts, a lot of languages. But it's common, like most of the people understand English and speak. And
even if you go to the east coast of Canada, it's English, but kind of not really. I've got friends from Newfoundland. And after one or two drinks, I can't understand a darn thing these people say. It's very Irish, Scottish. They've got different expressions for things, and it's almost a different language. So, but so there are regional differences even within Canada, and within the same language, there's going to be accents that are a little bit different. So that's fine, so long as it's clear, we'll understand. Just practice. Oh, I was going to say about recording yourself. When people record themselves and they listen back, they often don't like the sound of their voice. But let me tell you, that's how we all hear you. You're the only one who's hearing it that way for the first time because you're used to hearing it in your head. We're used to hearing it outside, and that's how you're hearing it for the first time. Oh my God, I don't like the sound of my voice. We love the sound of your voice. Okay, it's fine. It only sounds weird to you. It doesn't sound weird to the rest of us. So just get over that little psychological hurdle and record and listen to yourself back. Look, my brother's been in radio since I was 9 years old, roughly. Mm-hmm. And to this day, like he's in his 60s now. To this day, he records his show and we'll listen to it on the way home just to make sure things are sounding good and his tone and his speed. Sometimes we don't notice that we're doing things unless we look back, like the athlete that records their performance and plays it back with their coach. If you take this seriously, that's how you'll do this test. This is a high stakes test. This could change your life. So
that's
get
true.
rid of the embarrassment factor and just treat it like a job, treat it like an event, an athletic event, the Olympics. It's the CELPIP, it's the English Olympics, and you've got to train for it, and you'll do much, much better. If you go in afraid and ill prepared, it will not turn out well for you. It's not a hard test. You just have to be ready.
Yeah, that's true. Nowadays, when I interact with a lot of international students, their only possibilities to get PR is to score high in a CELPIP, uh, because it goes up. I think the immigration points goes up. So if they put a lot of effort in, definitely they have
Absolutely.
a great chance over here.
I mean,
Yeah.
wouldn't it be awful if the cutoff score was 512 and you had 511? I mean, wouldn't that just be awful? Like you're 1 point away, right? And if you had only just got that little better CELPIP mark, that could have like just boosted you. So every little bit helps. Every single point helps, because eventually there's a good cutoff, and you either make the cutoff or you don't. So really important to be prepared.
Yeah, that's great. So far, we don't have any other questions from our audience. I hope we can conclude the session for today. And I'm really impressed with your presentation, Rod. Like, it was.
I'm always impressed.
We're like 1 hour. We were just sitting here and enjoying your conversations, and a lot of things, information, and also entertainment.
Learning has to be fun.
You're an amazing teacher.
I appreciate that. Learning has to be fun. If it's not fun, we don't do it.
Yeah. And also, I have a request for all the people who are listening right now and also listening later. So Rod has the English Teaching Institute, and is it online? Do you do everything online?
We teach everything online. I don't have materials online at the moment. I will be working on that, but yes, everything is done via Zoom. So if people are international, we just make sure that the time zones work out, and that's fine. You can be anywhere in the world.
That's fine. And you can see his name here itself at .com or .ca. What is that?
.com. Actually, I do own both, but the .com is more known by people internationally.
So Rod Chalmers, Chalmers.com.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah. So you can tune into and get the information. Patrick, how's your plan about the next session? So we have completed right now the reading. Maybe like we can put it as a series, and everybody can join later. Yeah, we will get back to you about the date. It will be much helpful for our people, like listening, reading, writing, everything. Yeah.
Definitely. Yeah, we'd be happy to. And I don't know if the audience wants to chime in. Which component do you want us to cover next? Yeah.
Obviously, you can comment down here whenever you're watching. What is your difficulty, in which module you are struggling? So even this module we selected, I asked many students here, so what are your struggles? They were telling, reading is a tough thing, right?
Reading.
Now I understood, like, recording your voice and playing back, that is a much helpful thing for speaking. So Rod may have a lot of ideas about the different hacks to get your desired score, actually, right?
Absolutely. Yep. The only hacks you can't use are buying your test result online or using a template. No templates. Examiners know all the templates, so just avoid that and you'll be fine.
Yeah, that's great. That's
good.
Yeah.
I look forward to next time.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you so much.
Have a great day.
Bye. Take care.
Have a great weekend, everybody.
Great weekend.
Bye for now.
Thanks. Bye-bye.